Everybody, I'm Jim Sackett along with Kelly Dunn. We are following breaking news happening now at Palm Beach International Airport.
What we understand is that a twin-engine Piper aircraft crashed on takeoff today and exploded in a ball of fire on the tarmac. Right now, according to Palm Beach County Fire Rescue, 3 people are dead and 1 person is in critical condition after being airlifted to a trauma center. We have crews all over the airport at this point. Let's get the update first from News Channel 5's Tanya Rogers. What can you tell us, Tanya?
Well, Kelly, we got here moments after it happened. We want to go ahead and show you what is happening at the scene right now, which is right off of a taxiway right here at Palm Beach International Airport. This crash happening just after 6 o'clock this evening. As you mentioned, 4 people on board, 3 people presumed dead, 1 critically rushed to the hospital. When we got here, there were literally probably 15 to 20 fire trucks and paramedics here. Emergency vehicles have been coming and pretty much surrounding this crash site. We have taken a close-up of actually the scene of this crash site, and you pretty much just see the plane on the ground. You can tell that there was a fire, and you see just a lot of debris everywhere. They started to kind of cover up the scene. Fire officials remain out here. We are seeing mostly planes that are landing. A couple are taking off on different runways. Again, we're at Palm Beach International Airport where a crash happened just after 6 o'clock this evening. Not too far away, though, from the taxiway. A crash after takeoff. 4 people on board, 3 presumed dead. 1 was rushed to the hospital. We'll keep you updated throughout the evening. Reporting live, Tanya Rogers, WPTV News Channel 5.
Tanya, before we let you go, if you could kind of give us a sense of where that plane is with relation to the terminal. When we had the shot up, it looked very, very close to the terminal. Is it that close?
It really is close. Let's take another close-up again, if my photographer can just zoom in and show where this is. If you're familiar with the Delta Concourse, it's very close to that area, and we were actually able to zoom in close enough and see some of the people standing there who are waiting for their flights, looking through the glass, seeing all the emergency vehicles show up. So it's very close to the concourse. As I mentioned, we have seen mostly planes that have been landing. Only 1 or 2 that I've seen this evening actually take off. Many emergency vehicles stay on the scene, as you can see. We've seen actually ambulances and other fire emergency crews actually drive by where we are here at the airport. Back to you in the studio.
Tanya, thank you very much. Let's go to David Bagelos, our News Channel 5 aviation expert. He's on the phone right now. David, can you give us any other information before we start to ask you some specifics?
You know, Kelly, no, I can't. But from what I can see, it looks like a serious tragedy. It was averted by that aircraft not making to the concourse. But the aircraft appears to be a small twin-engine airplane, and it's not a turbojet-powered airplane, so it's got very high octane avgas fuel in it, which is much more flammable than jet fuel. So it looks like they dodged a bullet out there. Actually,
David, what we can tell you is that we have learned it's a Piper PA-44 Seminole.
Okay, so that's exactly right. So it's an avgas-powered aircraft, and it's quite flammable fuel, and it is really, really thankful that they missed the concourse.
Mm-hmm. Well, of course, David, it's speculation on our part at this time because the plane reportedly crashed just about an hour ago, but we just have a whole lot of questions and not a lot of answers with regard to this, and this is how an incident like this begins, right?
Exactly. Jim, I think we can rule out a couple of things. Weather is not a factor. We don't know what the condition of the aircraft was or the pilot or where it was heading, so weather was clearly not a factor here, and apparently they were taking off to the east, it looks like, and they may have been on the big runway, so that's always a good call. A bigger runway is better. But you're right, speculation is going to be very difficult at this point.
Mm-hmm. We were showing our viewers just a second ago, David, some video that Johan Hoffend, who works with our Captain Julie every morning doing our traffic, had shot earlier, and you saw the big plume of dark smoke that resulted after this, and you can see actually right there the bright light in the middle. That is the plane when it burst into flames. How does this affect the overall operations of the airport at this point?
Well, it depends on how close it is to the runway. If it's by the taxiway, as Tanya had pointed out, if it's by the taxiway, there probably won't be a great deal of effect to the operations for takeoff and landing on the main runway, which is the east-west runway. If it is, Palm Beach has what they call a crosswind runway, which they'll be able to utilize, which both the air carriers and the smaller aircraft can use. So I don't think more than a couple of hours it's going to delay people inbound or outbound. But right now, with all those emergency trucks out there, it's probably prudent to keep the runway closed.
What about the protocol right now? What happens from this point on?
Well, as you know, right off the bat, when the tower noticed that there was a problem, they have an emergency response plan. They activated it. The fire trucks were scrambled. They were there probably within a minute. And once they got the scene secured, got the fire out, and determined the injuries of the passengers, the next step is to secure the perimeter, and they save that area for the NTSB. They've already been notified, and the NTSB has what they call a go team, which will be on an airplane either tonight or early in the morning. They'll be down here investigating.
Mm-hmm.
And David, obviously, takeoff and landing, the most dangerous times to be on a plane. I mean, is there anything that comes to mind that, what are the likely scenarios that you run into trouble in a small plane, a Piper PA-44 Seminole, that you might encounter?
Yeah, Kelly, I've flown small airplanes like that for a great deal of my life, and they're not certificated to the same standard that an airliner is. And in other words, if an engine fails, it's not guaranteed to fly on one engine. We don't know the status of the aircraft. We don't know the status, the health, the qualifications of the pilots. So it could be any number of things. But I can tell you this, that properly flown and properly maintained, they're as safe as your car.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it is a definite tragedy. The first word we got, David, was during our broadcast at 6 that there was a fire, a plane on fire. And then, of course, about 10 minutes later, we learned that it indeed was a crash. And right now, the latest word from Palm Beach County Fire Rescue is that 3 people on board have been confirmed dead, and 1 person has been airlifted by Trauma Hawk to a trauma center in critical condition. We have not had a disaster like this in quite some time.
David, if you could remember, you've been around for a while, the last time we had a fatal plane crash at Palm Beach International. Do you recall?
Honestly, I cannot recall, at least for a decade. We've had a couple farther south in Fort Lauderdale Executive and Fort Lauderdale International, but no, I can't remember. It's been at least a decade. We've had a tremendous run of safety.
Which is a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely. We have been lucky so far. David, so as far as alerting people in the concourses, what would be the normal routine?
I don't know what the airlines have as far as routine. It goes by particular airline. They may choose to say something. They may choose not to. I don't know what each of the individual airlines choose to do. The airport tends to stay neutral on the subject unless it affects the concourse itself, and they need to evacuate people from the concourse. But like I said earlier, it's a great thing that this didn't happen another 100 yards farther to the north. We could have had a whole different scenario here.
No, exactly. David, thank you again. We want to tell our viewers that the pictures that you see on the left are from
Johan Hoffman,
he works with Captain Julie, and he was there on the scene, and you can see the plume of smoke after the plane crashed, and on the right is the live pictures of what's going on right now at Palm Beach International Airport in the aftermath of this small plane crash.
Let's go back now to News Channel 5's Tanya Rogers, who is on the grounds of PBIA. Tanya?
And definitely, and even if we've been just standing here, just waiting, we've actually seen a couple of emergency crews still going by here. We want to show you the scene one more time again. You mentioned before about what happens at the concourse, and when we zoom in very closely, you can actually see some of the people that Delta concourse are actually standing, just looking through the glass, looking at this crash site. Emergency vehicles remain out here. We've seen a few of them actually drive by us this evening. This plane crash happening just after 6 o'clock this evening. We even noticed a close-up at the crash scene. The ground is just completely charred, and we saw the fire rescue and also the paramedics. We saw them actually getting a tarp and kind of putting it over the airplane when we arrived this evening. So again, fire crews and also emergency vehicles remain out here at Palm Beach International Airport after a small plane crash. We've tried to look at some of the activity happening here with the planes. We've seen a few planes landing, not really taking off, but we have seen a few. It appears as if this plane actually crashed somewhere near the taxi area, is what we can tell. Back to you in the studio.